All right, welcome everybody. This is What's Up for Your Children, and it's July 20th, 2021. So, before we get into questions and things like that, let's go ahead and just start in the heart. And this time, we're just going to breathe into the heart, out from the heart, breathing in from all that is, if you will, and breathing out what no longer serves you. But I want you to find your kind of own pace and your own, just your own in breath and out breath. And also notice if when you're breathing in, are you holding tight or are you stopping for a second, or is it more of a flow from in to out? There's an awful lot of, just there's so much going on right now that a lot of times we have a tendency to almost take in information, take in energy, take in life force or prana or breath, whatever, and then hold it and then release it. So let's see if we can just get it a little bit more rhythmic so that this energy is flowing. We can also end up seeing this in our relationships and with our kids, and where it's almost like it's a this happens, stop, that happens. Okay. All right, and there is some, I will say that there's just some debris or some, we could call them blockages, but it's almost like just debris, static noise in that heart space. So let's just pull that information from the heart space. So we start with as open and fluid of a heart energy as we can. So we're pulling up everything that kind of gets stuck and sticky in the heart or feels heavy in the heart. And we're just going to pull all that energy out and put it in front of us. Put it right into a big bubble, big sphere. We'll blue star, put a blue star in that energy. The blue star is always your totality. It's your wholeness. You're already whole, right? So we're using that wholeness to spin through that static, that noise in the heart. There we go. And just clear out the whole sphere so you can't see any or can't feel any of that density there anymore. And then we're going to collapse that sphere back into that blue star. And we'll drop that blue star back into the heart space. Just implode it into billions of frequencies of light. We're just restructuring the heart. It's kind of, I just kept hearing the minute I checked in with everybody, it's like it's just time for a little bit of a reset. Yeah. Okay, so cool. All right, good place to start with a nice clear heart. So anyway, so where are our questions today, Sharon? Where are we going?
All right, this first question is how can I support my daughter's energetic presence here on a daily basis?
We support by example, I think is the easiest way to say it. So, as you're supporting your presence, as you're supporting your authenticity and your truth, in all the different situations that you find yourself in on a daily basis, your daughter is going to be watching that. And we know that kids, especially energetically sensitive kids, spend a lot more time paying attention to what we're doing and how we're expressing in the world than what we're saying to them. It's not so much about what we tell them to do, but what we actually do ourselves that makes all the difference in the world. So support your own authenticity, and she'll show up in her own authentic way as well. So, that's helpful.
All right. This mom is also asking what types of sensory support is she after that would be helpful for her at this time?
It needs to just be okay for her. It needs to be okay for others around her, that she feels things and touches things and smells things and grabs things. And, obviously, we're not giving her permission to hurt somebody or that kind of thing. But some of those things that we consider like, or that most people might consider oddities, odd behaviors. She is a sensory seeking uh, child. She is a sensory seeking individual, and she receives tons of information through that through the senses. And so we just want to see if we can normalize that a little bit. I would even, yeah, it's funny what I hear her saying is like when she's having some kind of sensory experience, she's jumping, bouncing, she's smelling, she's touching, she's whatever. Um, I would just ask her, "What'd you get? What'd you get? What do you know?" And even if she's not a child who's verbally responding to you, you're planting that seed that says that you're aware that she's taking in information when um when she engages in that way. As far as what she quote unquote needs, from like a sensory diet or those kinds of things, in many ways she's already telling you what she needs because she's seeking that out, through her sensory experience. She's telling you what she needs when she's jumping up and down or smelling or touching or whatever. That is what she needs. So it's more a matter of taking that need and adding awareness, one, to the fact that it is a need, and two, to the fact that we're just bringing awareness to her of what she's getting out of that experience. What need is being met for her through that experience. So I would start asking her that now. If she's nonverbal, you can also say, "It seems like every time you do that, you get this," or see if you can put yourself in her shoes for a second and reflect some of that back. If she's not verbally communicating it to you, but she's, in many ways, she is getting her sensory needs met, and she's reaching out and telling you exactly what she does need. So, yeah, by what she seeks out.
Okay. So this mother asked, compliance is hard for her son and OCD comes in the way. So her question is, my son probably knows which doors are open of cars or homes in general. He opens them even though it is not our car or home. How can I help him curb his capacity without intruding on someone else's privacy? Thank you.
Mhm. I would, he doesn't like to feel uncomfortable, and nobody really does, but his his desire to not feel uncomfortable is what precipitates some of his OCD behavior. And what makes him uncomfortable is much more subtle, let's say, than what might make most people uncomfortable. That said, he does understand this makes people feel uncomfortable. So when you open somebody else's car door, when you're opening, you're going towards their property, that makes other people feel uncomfortable, right? He understands that word makes them feel uncomfortable. He can really resonate with, because there are all kinds of subtle things and not so subtle things in his world that make him feel uncomfortable. I would go at it through that lens, and also don't be afraid. This is kind of the catch 22 maybe. two-edged sword here. Don't be afraid to make him feel uncomfortable by saying to him, when you overstep your bounds, or when you are, engaging with somebody else's property or that kind of thing. Um, that makes them feel uncomfortable. Yeah. And the trick is for you not to fear that you're going to make him feel uncomfortable by saying that to him. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting too. I will say that when you start saying these kind of things to him and you're not afraid to activate his OCD, or you're not afraid that he's going to become uncomfortable, it actually helps to, uh, yeah, it helps to mitigate some of that energy that's kind of creating that OCD anyway. Yeah, cool.
All right, this question is, my daughter just turned 18. It's been such a long road looking back. She has struggled with anxiety since about age 10, and now she prepares to go off to college. She has come to me with questions of possible ADHD or autism. I've also supported her and allowed her to do online school since 8th grade. What kind of guidance can you suggest in navigating her as she takes off and goes into this direction?
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's so cool that she's has made that choice for herself. Number one, that with all the stress and the anxiety that she's experienced over the years, that she still has kind of made that choice to, go away from home, go to college, go do those things. So that's number one. We want to really acknowledge the fact that there's some part of her already that knows she can do it, that knows that she's beyond her anxiety, beyond those stressors. So that piece is really good. Um, you know, in this case, I wouldn't say this everywhere, but in this case, it's not necessarily that well, let's say it this way. There is an emotional component to this for sure. And yet at the same time, she's telling me that it's not necessarily through emotional support or some kind of emotional process that she moves through this. She's telling me that more something that supports her in kind of closing up her field a little bit or solidifying her field a bit, could be really helpful, because she only has to go through one day where she feels like she's more contained, and then she's not so anxious, right? It's almost like if she was walking through with somebody that she really was really supporting her and holding her. And I'm not saying that we're bringing in another person, but it's that energetic field that she only has to walk through one day feeling like that, when she kind of goes, I can do this, I've got this, right? So I'd suggest things like, you can definitely do some form of bubbling up and things like that, energetic boundaries being created. But I actually feel like there needs to be a little bit more solid something for her. So homeopathics could work, flower remedies could work. I would say, if you're going to go the homeopathic route, I would use something like phosphorus, or something along those lines, where she can just take it when she's anxious, because when she's anxious, honestly, she's just pulling in information from the field around her. So we just want to create, especially in those first days of school for her, one, something she can hold on to. If she's getting anxious, she's got it right there in her hand, and she can take a little bit of that and create a little bit more of a boundary for herself. So I think that there's that piece of it, I think, could be really helpful. Flower essence wise, I'm not exactly sure what flower, I don't know flower essences as much as homeopathy. Um, but something that is specifically around grounding or rooting would be really helpful as far as a flower essence is concerned, because it just gives her enough stability wherever she is, um, to be helpful. So I hope that's, yeah, it's interesting. She does, it's almost like in her case, the any kind of emotional body work, at least right now, it doesn't mean it won't be helpful in the future, but like right now, it almost creates more anxiety instead of dissipate it. So I would go to something more physical, homeopathy or flower essence or something like that. So, but something she can hold. So,
Okay, this question is, my daughter is still quite triggered by the natural range of expressions and communications that I or anyone else has. I try to demonstrate breathing to calm and regulate my own sensitive triggers to her overwhelm, but it seems to also trigger and irritate her further.
mhm.
Suppression of my fullest expression and my capacity to freely communicate is starting to take a background toll on me, and I can't see this being truly helpful to her either.
Right.
But in the short term, it does seem to alleviate her immediate traumatic response. Can you shed some further light?
Well, one, especially, when you're in a place where you are the one that is, when you are able to respond to the situation, and she may still be reacting to this situation, right? You're able to take a deep breath and respond, respond through your breath and respond through your words, um, kind of neutralize the situation in a way that's that number one, that's a really good model for her. So whether she becomes irritated and frustrated by it or not is doesn't negate the fact that it is a good model for her. It's a good model for her um, to be able to respond versus react. And and so, well, one of the things that's just showing up is can you, how old is she? I just want to,
4.
4. Okay, yeah, definitely. Okay, um, so so again, let's take out let's put her as what you might consider a typical 4-year-old, right? She's more sensitive than your typical 4-year-old, and she has a more heightened capacity to. There's more subtle things that irritate her than a typical 4-year-old, right? So, or maybe let's say instead of typical, let's say a less sensitive 4-year-old, because her sensitivity is really and truly a capacity. So, but again, she's 4 years old. And so we really want to teach her, even at this early age, we do want to model responding versus reacting. She's going to be highly sensitive for the rest of her life. It's like not that she's not going to work out of some of those sensitivities, but she's going to have that level of sensitivity for quite some time. So the fact that you're modeling, I just want you to value that, not minimize that in any way. It's really important for her to see that, even from a really early age. And I would say to her things like, I see that you're upset by my response, right? I see that you're upset by my response, or I see that you're reacting to my response, right? You're just giving her information. This is a response and this is a reaction. You're not saying you're bad and I'm good. You're just saying, I see that you are, yeah, reacting to my response. So, um, and and it is also all right to give her some time and give her some space. You know, she's allowed to leave that place, leave the space that you're in when she's reactive. You know, it's okay to do that. And when she's ready for a response, she can come back. She can come back and you can have that conversation. But in this case, I just want to make sure that we're there's something very uh, typical, you know, about this particular 4-year-old behavior. I mean, it doesn't, and I don't want us to say, well, because she's sensitive, I can't, you know, I've got to treat this differently than I would if she was a child who wasn't sensitive but was reacting to a response. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's just, I hope this is making sense. But we do want her to just keep modeling what you're modeling. And when she's reactive to that, I would just say to her, you know, I understand, I see that you're reacting to my response. You know, maybe you want a little bit of space, or maybe you want a little time so that you can respond to, instead of making yourself wrong, right? We just don't want to, what you're doing is providing a really good model. And what we want her to see that as the model that's being provided, and we want to encourage her to follow that model. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. This question is, we have big academic functional deficit. Her son does. Is he even interested in learning any of it? Or is his life purpose something else? I really struggle and want to help him to have appropriate goals of his interests at school, at the school's IEP, and he is 16. So
Yeah. Okay. There are, how do I want to say this? Or I'll tell you what I'm seeing. It's like there are layers of capacity or abilities that he has that have not yet been unveiled or tapped. Yep. And in many ways it's because on the one, the way I see it is like, you know, typically a child would go to school, they have certain capacities, and so they, you know, they're just, somebody asks a question, they answer the question. It's just, you know, back and forth, right? Um, and and in this case, it's like somebody asks a question, but it doesn't layer in, it doesn't hit the the response. It doesn't hit the place where he can respond. And so he doesn't, you know, he doesn't. And so, but what's interesting is there's definitely layers of information that have yet to come up, have yet to fully come up. And one of the, well, is it true that there's not enough interest in him? Like, is it true that there's not an there's interest in what he is doing or not doing, but there's more attention paid to what he's not doing? And so if he's not doing that, then they're considering that he can't do other things. What I'd really love to see, if I could write the IEP myself, right? I'd really, I'd almost like the goal to be for the teachers. And the goal is to really have a level of curiosity about him, about what he is capable of, right? About what, hi there, yeah. I got the good look, so I'm good. So yeah, so it's like, I love when that happens. It's kind of like, just make that direct eye contact. It's yes, you got it. So yeah, so what we want is we want a true curiosity about his capacity, and less attention paid to what he's not doing and more attention paid to, well, um, is he more interactive when he's doing this, or is he more interactive when he's doing that? Is he more interactive when there are people around, or we want that level of curiosity so that we're looking for the way in, instead of just saying, okay, well, this skill's not there, so we can't go to the next one. Yeah. Yeah, that's where I would address it, because there yes, it's true, there is an innocence there, and there is a somewhat of a desire to stay in that innocence. But innocence and a lack of information or a lack of capacity are two different things altogether. And there are layers of information that want to come up and through him. So yeah. All right. Thank you.
What can I do to support the processing and releasing of her daughter's information, energetic overload, and overwhelm?
Um, so there's a bit of a, we all get a charge, or we all get fed on certain kinds of energy. And if you've ever met somebody who just really enjoys drama, or enjoys having a lot of angst in their life because it kind of makes them feel more alive, or that kind of thing, and or it reminds them of something that they know, or whatever that is. But in this case, it's interesting, because first we want to just bring awareness to what that sensation is, or what that feeling is that comes through her. Yeah, it's almost like if I was someone who really enjoyed drama, I'm just going to use that as an example, but if I was someone who really enjoyed drama, and that kind of cortisol rushing through my body, and that energy moving through, and that stimulation of, then it's almost like I'm looking for situations. I'm looking for situations that will bring that fix, that emotional fix through me. And so I think before we even talk about what can shift this, we really want to talk about what it actually is. And there seems to be a seeking out of certain kinds of energetic information. And then that energetic information is pulled in, and it gives her a certain kind of adrenaline, or a certain kind of emotional fix, let's say. And then that'll die down again, and she'll process that for a little bit, and then all of a sudden she's off looking for it again. So one of the things that we want to start helping her be aware of is when different situations that feel good in her body, when does she feel good in her body? When does she actually, we want to find out, does she feel good when she's drawing in this other energy? Or does she feel good when she's kind of got her own space, and that other energy isn't flooding in? Where does she feel more comfortable? And it's also really common for, when somebody first stops being, let's say, addicted to a certain emotional charge, when they don't have that at first, it feels like things are a little flat, like things are emotionally, they're just not there, right? So if I was sitting in a room with her, my first observation, or my first conversation with her, would be, one, what does it feel like when you kind of get charged up? Where are you noticing that in your body? Are there other times when you feel more comfortable in your body? Yeah. And yeah, are there times when you feel more comfortable in your body? And even that, again, regardless of whether she's articulating it back to you or not, or sharing information with you, she might be a little more. I would still say those words to her. And I would still tell her what you notice. I would say, I notice that when you're absorbing all of this information, you go into overwhelm and then you go into kind of breakdown, or whatever the pattern is. So I would tell her what you're noticing. I'd also tell her, I noticed that when you're doing these activities, your body seems to be really calm and there doesn't seem to be so much. What you're trying to get her to is an awareness of what it is she's actually seeking. Yep. Yeah. I hope that made sense. All right.
Says, I am not good at disciplining my child. I get lots of eye rolls. I hate it. How can I help myself and my son?
Um, you know, parenting is not that easy, and it's especially not easy when we live in a culture that really when we live in a culture that does not believe that it's okay to feel uncomfortable. Yeah, I mean, we've been taught, as long as we can remember, that it's good to feel good and it's bad to feel bad. And so when we have a kid who is when we have a child who's not really interested in having that conversation or making that connection, a lot of times parents won't say anything, or they won't share anything about that, because there's this fear that they're going to be made to feel uncomfortable. They're going to be sad. They're going to feel like we're not appreciating them, or whatever those things are. But again, at the end of the day, each and every one of us has all of these belief systems. We have all of these ways in which we have been conditioned ourselves. And no, there's not a parent out there that consciously wants to pass that on to their kids, but we all do. Yeah, we all do pass it on to our kids. And so I think that one of the things that the very first thing I would just ask you to sit with is, how do you feel when you're uncomfortable? What does it bring up for you when you feel uncomfortable, or when you feel like somebody's not pleased with you? Because my guess is that goes back to your childhood too. And then just ask yourself, is that what you want to pass on? Or do you want to pass on something else? And so, yeah, what keeps coming up to me to say is that it's okay that other people feel uncomfortable in your presence, and it's also okay that that other people make you feel uncomfortable sometimes. We don't want to run away from that uncomfortable feeling. We want to actually be present to that uncomfortable feeling. And when we're present to it and we can move through it ourselves, then when somebody else comes and they're expressing discomfort with us, it's much easier for us to work that through with them, right? Because we're not already triggered by the feeling that it's evoking. Yep. So to make somebody uncomfortable or to feel uncomfortable ourselves does not mean that we're wrong or bad, or that or something is, you know, inadequate. It doesn't mean that at all. It means we're having the feeling or the experience of being uncomfortable. And so we just want to be able to be with that. And the better we get at that, kind of feeling into what that brings up for us. No, we only have to have one aha moment that says, oh, I remember that. I remember when I, you know, made my parents feel uncomfortable and they yelled. I remember when, who knows what it is, right? But you just want to sit in that discomfort for a second instead of trying to get away from it, and see what information it has for you. And I guarantee that the next time he's either going to, you know, listen to you and excuse himself, and or listen to you and continue on with the conversation. You know, there's not going to be that yeah, the eye roll. That energy is primarily to bring up a feeling in you that might not very much like to be felt. So let's get used to feeling it and finding out what it might have to share with us. And yeah, I can feel it flattening out just as us talking about it. So I hope that's helpful.
Okay, this next question is, when my son is around little kids, he gets really anxious, covers his ears, and runs away. Can you shed light?
Yeah, it's interesting. Some energetically sensitive kids really love kids. Some do not. And when they do not, it's typically because the behavior of that younger child is more erratic. You know, you never know when a little kid is gonna screech or scream or turn to change direction or throw themselves down on the floor. And you know, it looks like your child is pretty both sound sensitive and movement sensitive. So let me see here. Definitely sound sensitive. Um, so one of the things that might be helpful, or this is what he's showing me in his case, I would, I would, I would, when you're introducing your child to children, especially children that are younger, it might be a good idea to just have a few moments of observation first. You know, just hold them back and watch first, because your child also picks up information very quickly. So those sounds that might be a little overwhelming, or those movements that might be a little bit too erratic, if he or she has the opportunity to back up first and kind of watch, this child really picks up that kind of information really quickly. So that's one thing that would also give a sense of empowerment to your child, that you know they have the skill to interact with younger kids for sure. It's just that with that level of sound and movement sensitivity, we need to see that, use that as a capacity and say, okay, I'm going to step back and I'm going to observe first. I'm going to watch what that looks like, so that there's not this, it's not so much that he's going to be able to, or she's going to be able to anticipate this, but that it just, there is a level of anticipation or expectation and anticipation. They can modulate that energy a little bit easier. So I would start with that. And I would really treat movement sensitivity and sound sensitivity like a capacity. I would say, you know, you really know when somebody moves too fast. You really know when you really respond to that kind of energy or react to that kind of energy. And because somewhere down the line, that's going to be, in your child's case, that's going to be a really useful skill set. I don't know where they're going to use it, how they're going to use it, but might as well start training that observation now, because it's going to pay off in the long run. So, yeah. Mhm.
She says, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Hope that answered your question.
All right, this question is, I'm aware of a lot of intense light energies coming through to us on a human collective level at the moment. I'm
Mhm.
just curious as to how this is also affecting her daughter and other highly sensitive children, and how to support them as well.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different things happening based on what I can tell anyway through clients and things like that. It is true that we have much higher, let's say, light frequencies bombarding the physical, mental, emotional bodies all the time. And we also know that when higher frequencies go in or lighter frequencies go in, darker frequencies come out. So, um, so for most of us, we get hit with a big wave of like higher states of our own consciousness or higher frequency energy. And within about, you know, if you're a good Cancerian woman, like I am, within about 30 minutes, I'm crying or something else is coming out, right? But for most of us, we just need to remember, number one, that there's that influx of energy, and it will always be followed by some old energy moving out, right? So that's the general, very very general, but that's the general pattern, right? And so we don't want to make ourselves wrong or bad or overstressed by the fact that there are things purging. For energetically sensitive kids, there's a couple things that are going on right now. One, some kids, and this can very much play out in the family too. Some kids can have all this high frequency energy coming in, and because they already are high frequency energy, it's like same. It doesn't seem to be impacting them in the least. If those same children have been trained that when a lot of new information comes in, they go up and out of their bodies, sometimes that same child will receive that information, and all of a sudden you see them disappear a little bit more. They kind of they distance themselves from this reality in some ways. But again, that's more of an energetic pattern that they've watched. This is how one reacts to that energy coming in. You go back out. So that's what they'll do as well. The other thing that's happening right now, however, that I really, if we're really focused on our own embodiment, and if the children are, if that's, their intent, then this is one of the best times I've ever seen for grounding, landing, integrating. And the reason it's such a good time is because all this old energy, as all this light floods in that the kids are used to, all have been used to for quite some time, it's breaking up all of the older conditioning, right? It's breaking up our old family patterns, our emotional patterns. It's breaking up collective heavier energies, and bringing them up to the surface. And what's really cool, it's like, think about that as being a foundation that's all being broken up. And now that child actually has a place to land where they didn't have a place to land before. So before, they might have come down into that field of energy and just bounce right off of it. They just bounce right back off of it. Now, because it's all broken up, there is this opportunity for them to get almost like anchor in or become a part of that energy of the earth field. And it's really cool. I mean, I've been watching some kids have some pretty beautiful shifts, usually with a combination of a little bit of physical support and some energetic support. But that landing is really happening now, like I've not seen it before. So that's cool.
All right, that is the last question.
All right. All right. So let me just check in and see if there's anything else that I want to share with you guys tonight. And then, I'm just going to say this because it came up several times in our questions tonight. We are, we really are at a time in history where everything is getting unwound. Anything that was a darker, heavier field within us, anything that was a limitation, all of these energies are kind of getting rattled right now. And it doesn't always feel all that great when things get rattled. You know what? We've stuffed everything down there for a reason. It doesn't feel good when it rises up. But what I will honestly say is if you can feel your way through this experience, if you can give yourself permission to truly feel what you're feeling in that moment, and there can be anything right now. I mean, there are days when, again, I'm a good Cancerian woman, so I have a lot of feelings, but there are moments when I can kind of wake up and feel very light and, just delighted by all the shifts and changes that are taking on. And within a couple hours, I might be really sad. I might not even know why I'm sad, but be feeling that so deeply. And, later that afternoon, maybe I'm angry that somebody's telling me, what to do or what I should be putting in my arm or on my face or whatever. And so again, let's just, instead of making any of that right or wrong, let's just give ourselves permission to feel what's arising. Just if we would just do that, humanity would be so much better off, because part of the reason all this stuff is coming up in the first place is because it was all suppressed in the first place. So we might as well give ourselves permission gently, in a nurturing, compassionate way to just feel whatever's coming up. We're not bad or wrong because we have bad feelings, whatever heavier feelings. It's all energy that's just trying to get broken up from those lower, denser frequency bands within us. So we might as well let it come up and out. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. And I know that in and of itself can be a tremendous help to your children, because your children in that energetic sensitivity are more keyed into emotional fields than just about anything else. So if you're processing that energy, if you're allowing it to be and allowing it to move, it's much more likely that they're going to allow their own emotional ups and downs to move as well. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. All right. Thank you, Sharon, for the questions and for everybody for being here. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Okay. All right. Bye.